Hey everyone, welcome back to Hobbies with Jose. And you know what? On this channel, I do want to try and give you relatively timely reviews, so you know my thoughts on the latest and greatest action figures and model kits. Now, it may not be easy, but we're going to give it a shot. Here's a 1.5-year old Transformer. Let's take a look. Thanks for joining me again, everyone. It's great to have you back. Now, I have a confession to make. I haven't bought a mainline Transformers figure since Animated. Closest thing to mainline purchases would be Studio Series thanks to the awesome Bumblebee movie designs. But I've been very happy sticking with the higher-end Masterpiece figures, although that may be coming to an end soon. Enter the War for Cybertron trilogy line, and specifically Earthrise and Kingdom figures with their mini Masterpiece-like design to once again pique my interest in a main line. And it's very fitting that today we'll be taking a look at the boss bot himself, Optimus Prime. Let's check out this awesome box. The overall shape of the packaging is pretty standard except for this slanted side, which bears a fantastic rendition of Earthrise Prime. Behind him, we see the arc in the distance below a night sky. The front has a very ample sized window, and running up the right side we have the Transformers lettering with the Generations and Takara Tomy logos right on top. And along the left side we have Optimus's name with the bottom displaying the Earthrise War for Cybertron logo, and finally the Hasbro logo. Pretty standard stuff. On the right side we have an equally epic depiction of what looks like a proper movie poster for Earthrise. We have multiple Autobots and Decepticons with the arc pummeling towards the Earth. So, more like Earthfall? No, wait, Earth is technically rising towards the arc, right? I guess movement is relative. On the back, there's some nice 3D renders of Prime showing off his various accessories, included Matrix of Leadership and different play options with his trailer, if you want to kill him. And lastly, a great shot of Prime in his alt mode glory. And speaking of amazing alt modes, let's crack this baby open. Now this has got to be the best truck mode Optimus has had outside of the Masterpiece line. Not perfect, mind you, but damn good. I'm not much of a car or truck guy, but a simple Google search tells me that G1 Optimus Prime is based off of a Freightliner FL86, which this doesn't really match, and you know what? It doesn't have to. This is a great modern take on classic Prime with the cab-over engine boxy look and plenty of panel lining to add in the little details. The translucent blue windows and headlights really pop having the silver plastic underneath, and I wish that look was continued with the side windows as well. Most Transformers main lines feel the need to have a gimmick nowadays, and Earthrise is no exception. Riddled across Optimus's body, we have these peg holes ready to take on various blast effects. Some are pretty inconspicuous, like the ones tucked between the rear wheels or almost hidden behind the cab. But others, like these on his arms and next to the exhaust pipes, really detract from the overall look of the figure. For me personally, I could have done without them altogether. Another detractor is the flimsiness of the gas tanks. They don't snap into place when in truck mode, and the ever so slightest nudge will shove them into Prime's legs. Not that big of a deal, just don't breathe on them and you'll be fine. The back of the truck is properly chunky and very clearly Prime's legs. That's never going to change. They do snap together quite well, which is necessary since the peg hole that holds the trailer is split in half. On the very end of the truck, the silver paint on the toes simulate rear lights, although a little red paint would have helped with that. I guess they didn't want to make him look too much like the G1 toy, or did they? We'll find out in a bit. The included ion blaster does fold up and neatly tucks in behind the cab, filling out that hollow section. It also has a side peg, allowing you to attach it to the side of the cab using those previously mentioned unsightly peg holes. It's an option. Adding the trailer to the back truly does complete the look of G1 Optimus Prime, and what a glorious look it is. Again, classic design and look with updated detailing. The rear, however, has a bit too much detailing for my taste. It does open up to form a ramp for fellow Autobots to drive in, but again, more gimmicks were mandated. So the center portion slides out to become a shield that he never used in the G1 show. It's cool, I suppose, but I also could have done without this. Overall, the entire vehicle mode looks great, and it's a worthy update to Optimus Prime, but even more worthy is the bot mode. And here we have Earthrise Optimus Prime, ready to stop Megatron, no matter the cost. And what can I say about this figure that probably hasn't been said before? He's nearly perfect. The overall proportions of his body, the intricate panel lining that adds subtle details all over, this figure is peak Transformers design. But I did say nearly perfect. The biggest hindrance to that perfection is the only real kibble that Prime has, and that's these wheels folded up on his back. They don't necessarily look awful per se, but they're clearly kibble. They're almost a non-issue, however, since you can very easily unfold them and pop them right off, but then he's left with this unsightly piece hanging off his otherwise flat butt. Which, by the way, I thought Prime would have a better ass than that, but I certainly won't shame him. He does, however, look a heck of a lot better from the front, so those wheels will be staying off. The paint job on Optimus is overall perfectly adequate. The silver on his abdomen and legs really stands out over the colored plastic. And interestingly enough, the paint used on his hands is a chrome-like blue that really stood out to me. It wasn't used on his legs, however, as they're just molded in blue plastic. It was, however, used on his head, but just the back. I'm not sure why Hasbro did that, as it's a perplexing look. It doesn't look terrible, just odd. But odder still is the paint or lack of paint used on Optimus's face. He has a standard silver over his faceplate, and the eyes have a lighter chrome blue, which looks great by the way. But around the eyes they left the blue plastic unpainted. Another seemingly odd decision. This really did strike me as an homage to the G1 Optimus Prime's toy, as it also had blue around his eyes, although his eyes were actually yellow. Wait a minute. Huh, look at that, yellow eyes. But this render actually has silver around the eyes, so clearly this figure went through some design changes. Overall, it's not a huge deterrence, just little odd choices that were made. The last bit of paint critique is on his crotch plate. The center section wasn't painted yellow. Still, not a deal breaker by any means, but knowing that it was supposed to be yellow does kind of stand out to me. And believe me, I feel bad for critiquing both Prime's booty and crotch, but believe me, that's the worst of it. We can now take the Ion Blaster and unfold it and insert it into Prime's hand, which, by the way, the fingers open and close too. How awesome is that? Here's where the shield from the trailer comes into play. We can attach it onto Prime's arm with that ungodly peg hole. It kind of gives him a medieval look, but overall it doesn't really work for him. Maybe he's just jealous of Cap's ass. Okay, that's the last time I'm talking about that. Now that we're using part of the trailer, let's take a look at the rest. In classic G1 fashion, we can open it up to reveal his mobile command center inside. This end section also extends similarly to the G1 toy, and its arms are on ball joints, so they have a great range of movement. Looking at the back of the box, it was originally going to be blue, so that's another change that happened. Unfortunately, it being the same gray tones as the trailer makes it look kind of bland. And the biggest omission here is that there's sadly no roller. I would have gladly traded the shield for him. But if Prime gets hurt, you can place him inside where he will get the proper care, and he will definitely be okay, and you will definitely not be traumatized. Ah, memories. But the greatest accessory is the one he carries within, the Matrix of Leadership. And it's quite impressive that they managed to make room for the Matrix, considering just how much of the truck mode is folded underneath. But this is where Prime really benefits from having opening hands, as it allows him to hold the Matrix proudly. It's nicely molded of what looks to be entirely made of clear blue plastic with the silver and gold parts painted in. Speaking of opening hands, Prime has great articulation, starting with the ball joint at the head, which can turn 360 degrees. It can look up that far and down that far. Pretty good range. Shoulders can rotate a full 360 degrees and move outward 90 degrees. There is a full bicep swivel, and the elbows can bend a full 90 degrees, with a full 360 degree rotation at the wrists, and of course opening hands. The waist does rotate a full 360 degrees, but only because we remove the kibble wheels in the back. And thanks to how the legs now rotate together with the crotch plate, Prime can kick to 90 degrees unhindered, and they can kick back that far. Upper thighs can rotate, and even though the knees are single jointed, they can bend that far. Sadly, the feet don't bend up or down, but they do have great ankle pivot. And here he is standing next to Studio Series 38 Optimus Prime, which, not surprisingly, they stand almost the exact same height. And they look just great together. Let's be honest, I may not give you a timely review on the latest and greatest figures anytime soon, but having this figure for a while now, I can confidently say that I highly recommend him. And if you can find him, he's absolutely worth the buy for me. Next week, I'll attempt to improve on near perfection by giving the boss bot a fresh coat of paint and some modifications, which I'll talk about then. And if you like what you saw, you know what to do. Thanks for joining me, everyone, and I'll see you next week. Take care.